So I have no idea how I've managed to link from doing a woodworking project, building the top for this island, through to today's butchery project. So I'm going to get the tabletop ready. The butchers are going to deliver half a pig today to kind of split it up a bit. So half a pig today and half in a week or two when I've got a bit more time. So I do actually have a proper butcher's block down in the cellar, but it's quite thick, and by the time it sits on top of the granite, it's going to be up too high. So I think this will be alright. If I'm actually doing any chopping, then I'll use a sacrificial smaller board. Okay. Should do the job. Right, now we need some knives. And last but not least, we need our sausage making gear. Most of you know the channel as a renovation channel, as a DIY channel, and essentially that's what it is. But food does come into that, and it plays a part, and that's why I've called this series of kind of foodie type videos Food It Yourself, because it really is just the same thing. You're cutting out the middleman and doing something for yourself, hopefully getting some better quality food, healthier food, and it's all a bit of fun as well. So as a chef, I was well used to breaking down large joints of meat, whole poultry and deer and game that came in, but I haven't done a pig before, so it's going to be a bit of a learning curve, I think, but it makes it the skills are transferable, so we'll see how we cope. Okay, let's see what we've got. So like I said, I'm going to get this in two halves, and the other half will get in a couple of weeks' time, and I'll get the head with that, so I'll have the opportunity to kind of look at that, perhaps do some brawn and use the cheeks. But we'll get stuck into this first. Just give it a quick sharpen. I've also got a saw. You can get bone saws. But to be honest, for this sort of home butchery, a normal DIY type hacksaw is okay, providing you've got a brand new blade in there. It's minimal the amount of, it's only to get through the chops really. But bone saws, normally I think they start at about 30 quid, so you could get a designated one. That's probably going to be a bit short for what we need, but we'll see how we get on. So I'm sure professionals are going to say I'm going the wrong part here, but I'm going to take the leg off just at the end there, and then we can get the rest of those chops all the way to the end. Right, that's our leg. Off with this tail. Maybe the dog can have that. And we'll just start trimming up as we go. So we'll put waste in there. Pop that to one side and we'll come back to that one. Alright, and we'll get the shoulder off. And like I said, there's going to be just a couple of big joints from the shoulder, as well as a load of trim for sausages. Actually, we can do most of that with the knife. Oh, and there's our whole shoulder. Right, then we'll take off the trotters. Again, I'm sure we could roast those for the dog. I mean, in the past when I was a chef, we used to try all sorts of recipes, and you could do stuffed pig's trotter, and yes, like in a stock, or if you're stewing down to get the flavour out of it. To be honest, it's probably not worth the effort as far as doing a recipe with it. But if I ever do an event for, you know, like 50 plus people, that's not 50 years or older, more than 50 people, I get a couple of these, because that is a whole shoulder, and that will fit in your like regular oven, and you can normally fit 2 of those in, and that will probably, I'd say, one of those, maybe 25 people. So if you go to butchers and say 2 whole shoulders of pork, it will come like that. They don't cost a fortune. I would guess maybe 25, 30 quid or something like that. So for about £1 a person, you can do a slow roast, sort of a hog roast, in your own home. You don't have to get a big spit roast or anything like that. So that's a little handy tip. Okay, at this point, a load of kids descended on the house, so you'll have to excuse the voiceover. So I'm trimming up this centre section now, and this is the tenderloin that's tucked right up inside on the other side from where the loin is, like when you see a T-bone. So trimming that away from the ribs and from the bone there, and that should come out fairly cleanly. Next I'm using the saw to cut down the ribs, and that kind of separates the chops and the loin steaks from the belly and the spare ribs. You kind of need a little bit of a combo between using the knife and the blade on the saw, but that should come out as one piece. You can then trim up. This is the belly here. Trimming that up just to make sure that it's fairly decent meat that we're left with, not too much fat. Some of this I'm just cutting away from the fat, and I'll use that for sausages, because as a roast it's probably a little bit too much of a fat ratio there. Cutting a few steaks on the bone. We don't eat much belly, Joe's not that keen on it, so I've kept some as a sort of something I can roll or cook and press, but the rest I will probably end up using for sausages. And this is the ribs coming away from that flat belly. And again, those ribs you can just trim up a little bit, square them off, and we can use those on the barbecue. More trim for sausages, and then here I'm just cutting off one section. There's a kind of meatier end of the belly, so I'm going to cut that off, and that we can slow cook, or we can kind of roll that, and the rest of it I'm dicing up for sausages. And I brought back in that section now. This is the whole of the loin, and the cleaver I've got is not great for chopping, it's a bit lightweight, but this is kind of taking out the half of it ends up as loin steaks, which is this bit, boneless steaks, and I'm trimming the skin off those and just leaving kind of a decent layer of fat to cook with. This is a fairly small pig, so the eye of meat is, you know, quite small, so I'm giving it fairly about 1 inch thick to make sure they're portion size. And then this bit, I wasn't quite sure how to go about it. I've cut through as much as I can, and then just doing the final bit with the saw, and then there's a little nugget of bone there which you can just chop straight through. So then that's our chops that are still on the bone, and getting all those wrapped for the freezer. And I'm trying to wrap them in kind of quantities that we would usually defrost to eat ourselves. Okay, so from that I've got all my chops, steaks, the inner fillet, which is the same as the tenderloin, some spare ribs that I've trimmed off, and a joint, a slab of belly. The rest of the belly I've diced up because we're going to make a load of sausages today. So they're ready to chill down. I'm trying to do it in stages so I can get stuff straight into the freezer, or at least down into the cellar where it's nice and cool. So we'll move those, and then we'll get on to the next big joints. Right, so we'll make a start on the shoulder. Like I said, the shoulder I'm going to keep quite large as one joint, or maybe just split it into two, because we're going to do this slow roast, sort of hog roast style pulled pork. And of course we can trim everything that comes off for the sausage or dice. So that's the rest of kind of the ribs off there. In here is that massive blade of the shoulder that you see. It's kind of like a triangle piece of bone. But I'll leave that in there, we'll roast it on that bone. So I'm just going to trim this up a little bit to get a little bit more fat for our sausage making. I know that that can get in the oven just, but I'm going to score it up now as well so it's ready. I don't have to worry about that. When it comes out of the freezer, just go salt and herbs, rub it in, straight in the oven and forget about it for the day or leave it overnight. I have seen some butchers use like a Stanley knife for this, but hopefully a sharp knife will do the job. Okay, so shoulder sorted, a little bit more trim to work my way through. I've got kind of bone and trim pile here that I need to sort through still. That's just some diced pork, which I've kind of got on the way along, and I'll do some more with some of the leg meat. And this is diced and chopped sausage, meat, or ready to be minced, and all the fat, like the back fat and the fat that came off the belly, I put in there as well. Right, now it's time for the leg. This bit's just like if you're boning out a leg of lamb, which is probably a little bit more accessible to most people. You know, if you buy a leg of lamb whole at the supermarket and you want to roll it, then this is how similar way you bone out the leg, by kind of scraping and tunnel boning it out. The idea being you don't have to butterfly the whole lot out. And if you are doing a leg of lamb for a barbecue or something, then of course you can just seam it, open it up, whip the bone out. It's much, much easier, but if you're wanting to keep it as a whole joint that you're going to slice through, then you obviously need to tunnel it out. This is a bit that butchers make look really, really easy. And when they've done it, when they've finished it, they pull out a shiny white bone. Whereas we'll probably pull out half a roast on top of this. The trickiest part of this, I would say, if you want to get everything out. Not too bad, there's a bit on there to trim off. We'll sort that out in a minute. So that's completely boneless leg of pork now. I don't have any butcher strings to tie this up, so I'm going to chill this down and then we'll string it up and cut it probably into 3 joints. Otherwise you could try seaming it into kind of 2 or 3 different muscles, I guess, and cut some steaks out of that, leg steaks. Right, so I'm going to final sort out, clear down, and cube everything up small enough that it'll fit through the mincer. And then I'm going to stick them in our chest freezer just to chill it all right down, and then it won't kind of gum up the mincer. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed something a little bit different from the usual DIY projects. I do have some footage of the sausage making, so I will try and get that one out in the future. But thanks for watching, and remember, whatever it is, if you can, do it yourself.